Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about navigating the twists and turns of life and embracing the imperfections of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches Catherine and Kirsty, and our mission is to support you in finding your own path, your own way, with greater clarity and self trust, no matter how messy or uncertain things may seem.
We address the roadblocks that come up time and time again for our coaching clients, from acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
As well as asking lots of questions, a coach's favourite thing to do, we'll be sharing thoughts and insights and offering plenty of tips, tools, and techniques for you to try.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello and welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. Now, this week we're tackling a topic that we're a bit surprised to discover that we haven't already tackled. And maybe it's because it is such a big one, it's hard to know where to start and what to cover with this one. It is motivation.
Yeah, totally agree. It is a big one, and I thought I can't believe we haven't. I suppose we probably touched on it in different angles in different episodes, but I thought it deserves its own episode. So let's kick off, as we often do, with a definition. And as you'd expect, there are a few little different ways to look at it. There's a generally fairly consistent view that it's a reason or reasons for acting or behaving in a particular way, or an enthusiasm or willingness to do something. So the bit I noticed really is it does seem to be about a drive towards action of some kind, like you have
Yeah.
a reason to do something effectively. And it might be simple and not hugely meaningful and require very little thought. It might be happening a little bit on autopilot without much input or processing. For example, you like this, Kirsty? I managed to get biscuits in here. I thought I've got to do it somewhere.
Always a
But
good
it could
start.
be as simple, yeah, it could be as simple as you'll notice even sort of subconsciously that you're feeling hungry. You know that you like biscuits. You know that there's a packet in the cupboard. It's only about 2 meters away. Before you know it, you're eating a biscuit or several. There you go, job done.
Simple as
Chances are you haven't really been considering the motivation behind it and all of those factors. It's probably been, well, certainly for me, definitely an autopilot. I think it probably is for you as well.
Definitely. And I think it's also a point where, that example does really well at combining those two aspects of motivation, the reason or reasons for acting or behaving in a particular way, namely feel hungry, and the enthusiasm or willingness to do something, namely biscuits. Um, because I think those can
Yeah,
be two quite different things, can't they?
yeah. But also, we like them. They're close by. There's many reasons to do it, and not many not to. It's easy. It's
Yes.
simple. But of course, we've started with a very light-hearted example. But we know with a subject like motivation, it can get a lot more complex, have
Mhm.
more meaningful repercussions, particularly when our motivation appears to be missing, because that's when we land in ambivalence, inertia, and indecision, possibly
Mm.
over significant life choices and actions. Because let's be honest, whether or not you have a biscuit, not really life changing stuff. Bear with me,
Depends how
Kirsty.
many you're having.
Yeah,
I speak from
it's
experience.
it can get sticky on more important
Yeah.
things. So let's talk a bit about what actually is tricky about motivation, and there's an awful lot of information out there on this subject, different angles. So we're going to talk about a few of those, but I thought the easiest place for me to start with this came up for me is in a very early episode, we spoke about confidence. It's another big topic, it's another thing that people want to have, but we seem to want to have it in place, this intangible thing, before we act. So we want to feel confident so we feel able to do things. And we've spoken about actually what really perhaps needs to come first is courage to take action. And then the
Mm.
confidence sort of is the byproduct, what we get as a result. So we'll put a link for that one in the show notes just so you can perhaps reference that one. So can you just wait for a feeling of motivation to arrive? I think that's a bit tricky
Yeah,
because
I
actually the
would agree.
motivation is the reason. If it is the reason for doing something, then we're looking for some kind of connection or a desire for the result of the action. And we have to go through the means to get there. So I don't think it is something that you can kind of wait for to arrive. Does that kind of make sense? Do you agree?
I think so, yes. What's coming up for me when you were talking about that was that, this idea of there being, a reason or reasons for acting or behaving in a particular way or for wanting to do something, they can often be in place, but you still don't feel motivated to do it, do you? Does that make sense? So you know that there's something that you want to get done, that you want to have happen, and you know why you want it, but we're still missing that second part of the motivation definition, that enthusiasm or willingness to actually do something about it and make it happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes if you just sit there and go, oh, not motivated yet, it's probably not going to happen. And unless you're one of those stress motivated people where when the deadline is, 30 seconds away, you suddenly leap into action and it all happens.
Yeah. Well, this is obviously what we're going to come on to. Different things are going to motivate people differently. Some people might respond really well to time pressure. I personally don't think I do, but sometimes it has to end up that way for me to make sure I
Yeah.
get something done because a deadline is just something that's going to loom and you have to do something about it. But yeah, it is interesting and it is complicated because we are all different. What motivates us is going to be different, and that's something we want to explore in this episode because I think if you can have an understanding, that's what we're going to end the episode on, of what motivates you, you can be aware of how you might be acting and behaving and what you might be able to do rather than I
You
don't
can
think we
motivate
can
yourself a
wait.
bit better.
Sorry.
If with all that in place, you can motivate yourself a bit better.
Yeah, exactly. And there are things that get in our way, and there's our subconscious as well. There will be things that are acting without our real knowledge and awareness, and that's
Oh
always
yeah.
harder because if you don't know about it, what can you do about it?
Yeah, back to conscious awareness. We need to bring in all that conscious awareness. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I totally get what you're saying about things that block motivation. I mean, we are mission imperfect, and one of the big things that can block motivation is perfectionism.
Mhm.
That belief that you've got to have it absolutely perfect, and if you're not sure you can do that, you don't know how to do that, then you end up not doing it so often. And I mean, I think linked to that, there's fear as well, isn't there? That fear of failure or fear of judgment, fear of just plain old getting it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, and what others think, and sometimes there's guilt. There's all sorts. You don't want to
Yeah,
draw
guilt.
attention to yourself or what you're doing, so it
Mhm.
can put you off from taking action. There's all sorts that's at play, and I think sometimes, as we've said before, you need to ask some simple questions to help you try and move past that. So, do you want the outcome enough
Mm.
to be driven to take action? Because you'd think if you did, you would just get on with it. So is it a case of there being the real desire? Is it a timing issue to do it now? Is there some kind of immediate reward as well? Because it's can be harder to be motivated for something that feels like it's a really long way off, and we're going to come on to that. So I was trying to think. Let's try and make this as a bit more tangible for people. So I came up with the two very different scenarios where you can think about an action that might need to be done and the motivation that might go with it. So, one of them could be a really boring, humdrum, but necessary chore. So, for example, your car insurance renewal is due, or your home insurance, whatever it might be. One of those boring kind of necessary
No.
things. I know that. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel the same. Could be your mortgage term is coming up and you have to renegotiate. I know. I try to think of the most sort of, according to me, this might be
Yeah.
someone else's idea of fun. I don't know. I don't know these kind of people. It
Okay.
could be filing the tax return. We're self-employed, so that's something we're familiar with, and these will be date driven. But I think for most people, we would probably agree they're quite tedious and unrewarding task. Even the outcome doesn't necessarily feel that enticing. You don't you have something necessary in place rather than something exciting. So the motivation might be just to get it done and off the to-do list as quickly as possible. For someone else, the motivation might be like, oh, I want to find the best deal I can. So the saving of the money might be the reward and they are willing to put more time in to find that. It's just it was an example of something quite dull and
Yeah.
necessary that I thought I could draw on. Your face says you can't think of anything worse, Kirsty.
I hate doing those things. I really hate them. And I absolutely believe they're necessary, especially on insurance. Um, but I think what bothers me about it, so I want the insurance to be in place. I hate the idea of it not being there. And yet I don't think, no, that's not true. I know I don't fully understand all the questions and all the issues involved in, renewing your insurance. So I'm always afraid that I'm going to put down something wrong. I'm going to answer a question wrongly because I've misunderstood it, and the insurance will end up being invalid. And that panics me every time. So I don't want to do it. I want the insurance there very much, but I don't want to have to do it.
Yeah, agreed. I just find it, and I know there's always some piece of information that they want to know that I can never find or have, like they want to know exactly what kind of locks you've got on your windows and that kind of thing when it comes to home insurance, just that tedious information that that you should just have it really to hand. But you never do. So every year I grumble and go and look for it. I know I should learn better. But what my whole point about this is, I don't think it's a surprise that these are kinds of tasks that we can kind of lack the motivation to get done. And I think the real obvious factor therein is probably the lack of perceived reward. It's just like a very necessary and dull thing to do. Compare that, for example, with scenario two. Maybe there's an outcome we do really want, but it seems like it's a long way away. So you might have set a goal like, I'd like to run my first marathon, or I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to pivot my career. We're talking about quite big desired changes,
Hmm.
but they could involve, you might have to build up your running sessions over a period of time. You might have to follow a health and exercise routine for a number of months to lose that target weight. You might have to invest in retraining, for example, for a year or whatever it might be. So the result is quite a way off. It's very much desired and there is a reward there. It's just quite a long way away. So keeping motivated for the duration can be hard because we aren't seeing what we want yet.
Hmm.
So I realize, I suppose the common thread there is perceived reward. And I know there is more to it than that. The first one was kind of lacking any kind of reward, it was just necessary. The second one was very much like about a delayed reward.
Yes. And I think, I mean, you mentioned this idea about the reward and the outcome a few times, and you've already touched on the idea of, do you really want it? How much does it matter to you? And I think the example you gave around losing weight, for instance, is a good one to challenge yourself. Are you doing it because you want to, or because you feel you should? Are you trying to meet other people's expectations? I mean, that can be true in so many things we do, around career as well. If you feel that people don't approve of your the kind of job you have, or that you should be doing something different, more grown up or whatever, um, you convince yourself that you should do this. And you confuse it with wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
to,
There's
to
all sorts,
stick the
isn't there?
course for something you don't actually want, to spend months, years working towards something that deep down is not lighting you up. That's bloody hard, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So there are many reasons, I guess, why motivation can be lacking. And the point is, it leads to a lack of action, lack of outcomes and results, just even if
Mm.
they're truly desired or not. What else do we know about motivation? So we can be motivated by either what's known as sort of towards or away factors, which you very helpfully said carrot and stick, which is exactly is exactly that, isn't it? We might be like pulled towards something by a desire for that outcome, or we're pushed away from something by a fear of consequences or not having something. So, for example, like a fine from HMRC for not doing the tax return on time. So, that dull task that we put off until the last minute, eventually it might be a case of, I don't want the fine. So I'm just gonna have to do it, swallow it, just to get it done.
Yeah.
Either way, a feeling of some kind is enough to trigger us into action. That's what's happened there. So the kind of like real desire to do it hasn't, in that example, hasn't arrived. It's like a repercussion, consequences, or an away factor, the stick that has driven that one.
Yeah. Like with the insurance, it's that fear that something's going to happen and you haven't got the
Yeah,
insurance in place to
exactly.
deal with it. Yeah.
Although it's interesting what you were saying about you fear about invalidating insurance. I have a much more cynical viewpoint that they'll find any loophole
Okay.
possible. So even if you've got the insurance, your chances of actually having a claim approved probably seems quite slim. But then would I risk not having it? No, I wouldn't.
Yes. But
So yeah,
that can block you from being motivated to go through with it. Well, I want it in place because I don't want anything to happen and to not have the possibility of it paying out. But actually, I don't believe they will pay out. So I'm going through all this nasty task for nothing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's quite
exactly,
hard to
exactly.
motivate yourself around that, isn't it?
Yeah, because we on the whole we're going to want something out of our efforts and time and energy, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
it's human nature. Even if it's just a good feeling, which we're going to come on to, because let's talk a little bit about slightly connected to this towards and away. I think many people will have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and
Hmm.
in a nutshell, it's kind of like a pyramid where he suggests that you have your sort of more basic needs at the bottom that need to be met, and then you can try and work your way up. But it's not necessarily linear. You might drop down if life events happen, like you're made redundant. You might suddenly find you're at a lower level of the pyramid than you were previously. But basically, he has what they're known as deficiency needs at the bottom of the pyramid. So basic physiological needs, food, shelter, warmth, safety, they belong down there. A little bit further up, you've got belonging. So that's what your connection and relationships with others. A little bit higher up again, you have esteem. So that's your sense of dignity, accomplishment, and mastery.
Mm.
But his point here is that these things, the motivation comes from the need not being met, and the motivation decreases as they are met. So, in very simple terms, if you have a roof over your head and you're happy with it, you're not continually motivated to keep looking for somewhere to live because you have it
Right.
and it's in place. But if you don't have one, of course, you're incredibly motivated to get that sorted. And then higher up is the section of the growth needs. So this is the top of the pyramid, and commonly referred to as actualization. I knew I wouldn't be able to say that. Where we're talking about fulfilling potential, personal growth, creativity, and joy. And this is where motivation actually increases as needs are met. So you kind of want more of it. It's a different kind of motivation.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's I'm kind of getting my head around it. I had heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I can't say I'm familiar with it. So yeah, that's thought provoking about quite how that can play into things.
Mm. I think I'll put a couple of references in the show notes if people are interested to read a little bit more about it. He himself did acknowledge this is not like a foolproof
Mm.
system. Like you have to, it's
Yeah.
not like you complete one layer, move up. It's not like a computer game. You get to the top of the pyramid and it's like life complete kind of thing. You can go up and down levels. It doesn't have to be truly linear, but it kind of does make sense when you see what's in the layers of the pyramid. You can see why if you don't have the really basic needs fulfilled, you're not going to be seeking the self actualization at the top because your concern is going to be much more basic and of requirements, if you like, to be met, those
Yeah.
deficiency needs rather than the kind of sort of growth and fulfillment needs. And this is, I suppose, slightly connected to another school of thought around intrinsic motivation and
Hmm.
extrinsic motivation, by which we mean if you're intrinsically motivated, is you're doing something for your own satisfaction. So it's very much driven internally. So this would be Kirsty, the things you were saying about the things that you truly desire, the things that really
Mm.
matter to you, and you just have enjoyment of the process. It's not necessarily connected so much to an outcome or what others will think, a reward at the end of it. You're actually doing something just for the satisfaction of doing it. Whereas the extrinsic, as the name suggests, is driven externally. We do something for external reward. So that could be grades, it could be a bonus, it could even be recognition. You want, praise or acknowledgement from someone else. or to avoid punishment.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, they have two different sources, I suppose, of what people find motivating. There is a school of thought that we always should try and seek the intrinsic side because it comes from within as opposed to extrinsic, which is coming externally. But my view is, does it really matter that much as long as you are aware of where it's coming from and what it means to you?
That's an excellent question. And I think with extrinsic motivation, that's quite hard to say, isn't it? Extrinsic motivation.
No, yeah,
Um,
I think I stumbled over them both several times.
it doesn't look too bad written down, but when you try to say
Yeah,
extrinsic, your face starts doing strange things. And anyway, that one, um, and we are fundamentally talking about that kind of need for external validation in some way, aren't we?
yes.
The people pleasing, the fear of judgment. And yeah, I mean, particularly in the workplace, not everybody is going to be, you know, in a job which they are 100% passionate about and that they find utterly purposeful and they totally believe in. So if you are motivated by the salary you get, by the promotion you can get, by the bonus you might be eligible for, is that a problem? I mean, as long as it doesn't mean that you do a really bad job unless you get a bonus and promotion, that's not ideal. But if you're motivated to step up and do more and commit more and, find some challenge in what you're doing in order to get that external validation, is it really a problem? I
I
think I
know.
agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I suppose in an ideal world, you perhaps don't get so wed to the external factors that you overlook the internal ones.
Hmm.
I think what would be perhaps ideal is you have a little bit of a marriage of the two. So you would perhaps be
Yeah.
doing work that you do find to be of value, but you're also happy with the compensation and the reward and the recognition that you get for it. Because I think that is a very human thing to think,
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
how am I doing? If you imagine if you were doing a job and got zero feedback at all on anything you did, I don't think it's necessarily a neediness to have some kind of understanding of, am I perceived as valuable and contributing in this company? So
No, absolutely. And if you need that validation in order to d- to make an effort to do something well, that feels a bit problematic. But is it a problem to enjoy the recognition and to be motivated by it? No, I don't think it is.
yeah, yeah,
And even if you don't find your job purposeful, if you have that intrinsic motivation around how you are using the money you get for it, if that is financing the side of your life which is fulfilling and purposeful, then that's a good thing too, right?
yeah, absolutely. And as we speak about, I think in every episode, barely anything we just discuss is in isolation, is it? I mean,
Mm.
we're not. So you can't compartmentalize facets of your life into neat little buckets and only pay attention to them in isolation. It just doesn't really work that way. And I think, the same applies for this topic of motivation. And I think, so we've talked about a couple of ways in which it can show up. We have towards in a way, we have the hierarchy with deficiency needs and growth needs. We've got this intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Hopefully, talking around those things, we've just lit up a few connections for people
Yeah.
about things in their lives that they might see playing out and why they're perhaps are stalling to take action on some things, and other things you can see why you do take action quickly. And it could be, I think there's no shame in saying, well, yes, I do fear repercussions, so I get it done as soon as possible. So it's like my daughter doesn't like to be like late with her homework kind of thing because she doesn't want any of the repercussions. It's not that she loves doing her homework, but she doesn't want it to sort of be hanging over her either. She likes to get it done. So always talk about motivation. I think let's wrap it up by talking about understanding it in terms of what it does it mean for you, because really I think what it comes down to is the question we were sort of trying to unravel is, this thing, whatever it is, matters enough for me to act, and then I do something. That's essentially what motivation is in whatever form it might be, like, and it can be a negative slant, I suppose, like that fear of punishment, or it could be the hope of a
Mm.
reward, or just the satisfaction of doing it just for doing it. It drives you towards action. And I think, as you touched on earlier, Kirsty, we don't expect or aim for perfection. You're just looking for a reason to do something. And understanding what motivates you is going to be helpful, because it isn't likely to be something that you don't genuinely want, or is of no interest to you, or doesn't matter to you. And it may or may not be directly connected to the outcome or to the process.
Mm.
I like just going for my daily walk now purely for the walking side of things. I started it as a sort of like health thing. So there you go. That was my motivation, be a bit healthier. But now I do it just because I enjoy it.
Because it feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Um, and how much does the outcome really matter to you? That's a key question to ask. You touched on it before, because if
Always.
you're doing it out of some sense of obligation or should, it's possibly going to be difficult to keep the motivation there long term.
And also, very much connected to that is reading into understanding what you want, and if the approach that you are taking to achieve it is the best way or the only way. Are there other ways of doing that?
Mm.
And I think if you have a think about what blockers are at play as well, and how might you address them. Because if you know you want something, but you're still not taking action to get it, what's that about? What is getting in the way? And the chances are it's some kind of fear, a fear
Yeah,
of failure or getting it wrong or what people will think or of not getting it perfect. Our old friend perfectionism in there. And if you can see that, that's going to make a difference to how you can start taking action.
yeah. It's like an invisible wall in your path, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know it's there. You can't get through it. You can't get around it, over it. It's like a force field in your way. But until you kind of tackle it, it's going to remain in your well. Your desire to do the thing is there,
Yeah.
but you keep hitting up against this obstacle. So you have to be able to try and dismantle it.
And I think from what you said around Maslow's hierarchy, maybe it's worth sometimes thinking about those, what do you call it, the deficiency needs.
Mhm.
So if you are struggling to motivate yourself to do something about a growth need, is that because something further down the pyramid is out of kilter for you? If you're looking at something quite big and purposeful and significant and not taking action on it, even though you believe you want to, is there something maybe missing a couple of steps back, maybe around or back below, however you like to
Yeah,
term it, around that sense of belonging and connection, perhaps if you don't feel that you've got those kind of roots in place, is that interfering with your sense of your ability to move forward in other ways? That's
yeah,
something I mean.
and that's a really interesting point, because as I mentioned, he did kind of expand on the model
Mm,
later to say, look, please don't view this as a you must complete each level before you're allowed to move up to the next. It's not like a computer game. I don't think he used those terms, but that was the explanation he gave, because also some levels are going to matter to people a lot more. So for some people, that real sense of belonging and connection is going to be really, really powerful, and they'll want to spend time and energy and effort in there. They will be literally motivated by it. Whereas for other people, it's less important,
yeah.
and they'll have other stages below or above that matter more to them as well. So I think it's going to be on a quite a personal basis how you interpret
Mm,
that pyramid for you, like everything we've discussed. But I think if you see it and you can acknowledge what are in those layers, you might be able to recognize, well, I know this stuff matters to me, and this is where I maybe have some gaps, or actually this one is fairly solid, so that's all good, or this one isn't so significant for me. There isn't a
yeah.
right or wrong way of looking at it.
Mm. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll put some references for people in the show notes so they can have a route around in some of the things that we've mentioned, but let's share a few quotes on motivation. Now, this is interesting because you can just find the ones that are very much about go out and get it, do it anyway, that kind of thing. And I thought, well, let's maybe a little bit of that. So, for example, this one by Walt Disney: the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Very to the point, isn't it? Just like
Yeah, yeah, and you can't really argue with it, can you?
you can't. And there's a very famous what's that? I think you sort of count to five and you get up, you just do it, or count backwards from five, five, four, three, two, one, and get up and do something. I think
Is
Mel
that the Mel
Robbins came up
Robbins thing?
with
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I think so. Just a kind of like literally almost get yourself moving before you can start arguing, procrastinating, perhaps letting those invisible boundaries come up before you're even had a chance to try and get over them. You can try and start to take action. Doesn't always work, but sometimes as a short-term measure, it can get you moving. And
mm,
ironically, that's when you find your motivation grows because you can see, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. Or I can
yeah.
see some results happening slowly. I'm making progress, I'm getting somewhere.
Yes, it's sometimes just those little things, and I did something, I took action, and nobody laughed. Nobody went, "Who do you think you are to do that?" The world
Yeah.
didn't end. It was all okay. Maybe I can do something else.
Yeah. Which is a little bit connected to this one, which I really like. This is Martin Luther King. If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way.
Mhm. Yeah, why not? Sometimes it's the little steps that make all the difference, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and very on a very similar theme, I like this one from Arthur Ashe. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can.
Yeah.
And I think if you do realize that you've got these sort of perfectionist tendencies, or that you're worried about, knowing all the details in advance, that can be a helpful reminder.
Yeah. I think so too. I really like this one. This is a real kind of, I guess, motivator for people who might be feeling doubt. This is believe in yourself. You are braver than you think, more talented than you know, and capable of more than you imagine. And that's
Yeah,
Roy T. Bennett, which
that's
I think is
nice,
a
isn't
nice
it?
one when people sometimes are just, there perhaps aren't other more complicating factors at play other than you just doubt your
Self-doubt.
ability to
Yeah.
do something. And that can be such a barrier for people to not take action. So
So
here we
true.
go. Question for everyone around motivation. There were so many things we could have asked, but I thought let's
Mm,
keep it on the thread of what we've discussed. And it's about understanding yourself and motivation. So, what do you understand about yourself and what you find motivating? Perhaps from what we've discussed and things you can read up about as well. And are you using this to your advantage? Do you know what pitfalls to look out for? And I thought, okay, fair enough, got to give this one some thought. And for me, I know I have to be careful about far off rewards because I can find it
mm.
too demotivating when something feels far away. And patience has always been a struggle for me. But as I mentioned before, I have realized I've managed to cultivate habits purely for enjoyment now, like the walking. Something actually feels off now for me if I don't do it. I can't quite pinpoint what it is. I think I actually get a bit restless. I found the benefits to be so more far-reaching, I guess, than I thought that they would be. There is space, there's quiet, there's thinking time, there's
Mhm.
movement. I get to see a bit of greenery and a big sky, which I really like and I hadn't really appreciated before until I'm under it, and I can just you have that moment where you can just kind of, I guess, disconnect from a lot of day-to-day humdrum chores, all that kind of stuff. Um, and then I know it's good for me, which is that extrinsic motivator, but I just enjoy doing it, which is the intrinsic side. So I think there I have managed to find that helpful marriage. And also it's immediate. That's the other thing I really like. Whether it's having long-term benefit, I guess I don't really know, but I kind of know that it should be and will be, but I don't need that to be the only motivating factor to do it. So that's
It
what's good
feels good
about it.
straight
I
away.
just need to tap into all of that for other things. Gosh, that's like I don't know how to translate this to the insurance renewal. that I mentioned at the very start.
Ooh.
If anyone has any tips on how to do that, I'm all ears. But
Yes, please do get in touch with those tips. I think there are a lot of people who need them, and if you have those tips, I think you could make a lot of money.
yeah, yeah, definitely. What about you, Kirsty?
Yeah, first, I want to say that big sky thing. I think that's a surprisingly important thing that I've come to notice as well. It helps you that sense of seeing sky, a big expanse of sky. It doesn't just disconnect you from the day to day mundane and stuff that can drag you down or stress you out. But it also, for me at least, gives me that sense of connection to something bigger. And it's very refreshing. But anyway, for the question, for me, the big blockers to motivation really are the standard ones: fear, perfectionism, and I think connected to both, but maybe a bit separate as well. That I I find it difficult to take action when I don't know exactly how to achieve what I want, when I can't lay out a step-by-step plan and be sure that each of those steps is going to get me where I want to be. Uh, that whole, well, if I do this, this might happen, but this might not happen. And so am I going to get any closer or not? How do I know what will happen? How can I control it? I can tie myself up in knots and basically get in danger of disappearing at my own arse, fretting about that instead of just doing something and seeing what happens. So I have to remind myself a lot about the importance of taking action and trusting myself to work things out as I go along. And again, the more you do that, the more you do become able to trust yourself to cope with whatever happens, because it doesn't always go right, and that's okay. And I'm better than I was, but it is very much a work in progress. um, and I am an absolute sucker for immediate gratification, hence all the biscuits. And that can be a real blocker to longer term motivation, but I can use that as a reward. So if I can put in place the little rewards, although I have to be a bit careful because rewarding myself with a biscuit for every task I achieve ultimately ends badly. So I have to be a little bit controlled on that. But yeah, that can help.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think there's something wrong with wanting some gratification for what you've
No,
done. But if you maybe find an alternative to biscuits or alternate biscuit and something else, because that might work well. But I
I'm
don't think
working
there's
on it.
anything wrong.
Working on
Yeah, working on it. Right.
it.
We'll report back on what that substitute is at a later date. So I'm
There
just
is
going
no
to recap that
substitute
question.
for a biscuit.
I know. It's well certainly not, like a pile of broccoli or something. It's not quite the same, is it? But just going to recap that question. So, what do you understand about yourself and what you find motivating? And are you using this to your advantage, or do you know what pitfalls to look out for? We'll pop some extra resources because we know this is a meaty subject in the show notes. And as ever, if you'd like to contact us, please do drop us a comment. We do make sure we read them, and all our contact details are also in the show notes. But that's it for this week. So, until another time, we will see you soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect. We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of our episodes, especially if you've had a light bulb moment in answering one of the questions, have benefited from one of the tips, or have a suggestion for an episode topic.
And if these conversations have made you curious about how coaching could help you, please don't hesitate to get in touch with one or both of us to find out more about what we offer. Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.